Okay, I think we are live. We'll just give it a few seconds for the adverts to probably get out the way, and then we'll go for it, Paul. Okay, right then. Welcome everybody to tonight's Truth Proof live stream. Another great night, another great guest. Sky is doing our moderating for tonight, so welcome Sky into the stream. And I know there's quite a few names on the stream for us to give some name checks out, Paul.
Yeah, we're back around to it again, aren't we? These Thursdays come quick, and I'm really looking forward to talking to this fella, tonight. And I think
Sure.
Rev is going to have a few challenging questions for him as well, which will be brilliant. So, yeah, what we got in here? We've got Jack Hills, and it's Jack S, but I know who that is. Tino, Mini Moose, Aya, and Richie White, Patrick Daniel, Patrick, Disabled Welshman, Chris Mac, Stargazer Eternal, and Mark Farnell. Good to see you, Mark. Annie French Boynton, Janice Parry, Forrest RY, Sky, as usual. As always, great to have your support. Alex Thompson. I hope Alex. And Jess is in. Is she my daughter? And Joel. I hope Joel. I don't know if Lynn is in. It probably is. And Pete, who comes up onto cliff tops with us. So, yeah, I know we're going to have missed Simon Riley. I know we're going to have missed names out there, people, but Tom Waters, every time it flips up, I see another name, but they're all people that have sort of given us loads of support. So you've got to do it. Bridget Van den Bosch, people that have come up onto cliffs with us. So great to see you all. And like Les says, let's get into this and let's get talking to our guest for tonight.
Yeah, well, just before that, Paul, have we got any updates have we done anything since last week? Any research? Have we got any more reports in?
It's been really busy. Not stopped. I think tonight will be Orny night. I haven't been out. And it's not because we've been seeing loads of stuff, but I met a guy up there that had a strange experience and seeing things. And as well as just going up there and trying to gather more evidence about what we're looking into. Me and you have been out. We've done a bit of filming, which has been good. We're off to do a bit tomorrow, which is even better. And then we've got a bit of work of at weekend. And it's work, but it's a pleasure, to be honest with you. And we've got some great people involved in it as well this time. It's not just me and you, which is brilliant. Well, it weren't before because we've got Chris Wright. What an asset. But yeah, all good. Been busy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the bit of filming, as you mentioned, tomorrow and probably Saturday. So all good news. So without further ado, then I think it's the right time to bring the Rev and Rik Allan on. So welcome, guys.
Hi, Rick.
Hi.
Rev,
Hi, guys.
All right.
Hi.
Great to see you both. And yeah, really looking forward to it. It's been a long time coming, really, Rick. We should have been talking to you a few years ago.
I think you got the timing just right, Paul. I think now's the time. I wasn't ready before, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I feel I'm ready now.
Yeah, honestly, there'll be a lot of people in audience, people watching this afterwards who will not know who you are and what you're about because you've kept all your research to yourself. Normally I'd be saying, oh, this is Rik Allan, writer, author, researcher, but you're a researcher and it's deep research. This is as deep as it goes, people. Open a few people's eyes up. Go on, Les.
Yeah, can I just interrupt because I'm going to come off the screen in a minute. Can I just remind everybody who wants to ask Rik a question tonight or the Rev or even Paul to put it in caps. Sky will float that across to me and we'll see you at question time. See you later, guys.
Thanks a lot, Les. See you soon. Yeah, it's just that. That's exactly what it is, Rick. It's deep research. I mean, you've gone deeper than most. And as we were saying just before we came on here, the people that don't know, but there's a people who are high up in subject, who've watched you over the years make comments, maybe under another name, when you're in a chat.
Yeah.
And they've realised what you've said's been quite profound and interesting, and they know I know you, and they wanted me to put you in touch. And you've always kind of stepped back from it. So I think kind of best thing I can say is it's Rik Allan, researcher, deep research of unexplained phenomena, more cryptid related than others. But we're going to touch on other things during the course of this next 2 hours, aren't we, Rick? I hope we are anyway.
Yeah, we are. We're going to cover cryptids, aliens, that sort of stuff.
So come on then, Rick. Where did it begin for you, this? Just give us a breakdown, me and Rev.
I
Lost your
honestly
sound,
can't
Rick?
remember a time when I wasn't interested. Could you hear me now?
Can now.
I can't remember a time when when I wasn't interested in the paranormal, Paul. You know, it's always been there or thereabouts. And I've also always had a deep passion for wildlife. You know, at one point I remember wanting to be a gamekeeper because it just seemed the life. So what happened was eventually I come across the cryptids, and I could see there was issues with what was getting described just because I was so rooted in nature and evolution and stuff like that. So it really developed for there and kind of come on full strength as I went into adulthood.
So where did you cross the bridge then from looking at nature and then going into the cryptids? Because remember, when you were looking at this, Rick, you're in your 50s. People weren't talking about dogmen as such. So
that's right. I would say my early 20s, Paul, when I started to lump it together. That's when I really started. I mean, I remember sitting down with my friends and saying, look, aliens are real. I'm going to devote my life to find out what's going on here. So I know I was in my early 20s when I said that. So that was when I certainly made a conscious decision to kind of devote my life to try to get these answers. You know, it just seemed that these were the things to try and answer.
And what a thing to say, Rev. What do you think to that? Devoting my life to finding these answers. I know you mean that, Rick. I mean, you send me emails, and they're not emails, Rev, they're books. He sends me reams and reams of, and you have done for years and years. And a lot of for a lot of time, I were reading these emails and thinking, God, these are way out there. But a lot of what you're talking about, or I've been talking about, people are starting to latch onto now.
Yeah. And, see, one of the problems I found, Paul, that science hadn't caught up with where I was. So, for example, I could remember when scientists weren't sure if there was water elsewhere in the universe, but it had to be elsewhere in the universe because the universe abounds with life. So I could remember them finally getting to the point where they acknowledged that there was water everywhere. So there's been a few times I've had to wait until science caught up. And the genetic engineering, that was the big thing. This is really what I've been waiting for now, to get my head around genetic engineering to try to explain what's going on in the world.
So, is there anything you want to ask, Rev, before we ask Rick to get into the subject of cryptids? And no,
let's let him get on with it. Yeah, let's have it.
Okay, right. So when you look at human history, it doesn't matter what time it was. It doesn't matter what culture it was. It doesn't matter what religion it was. Every single human society somehow has these beings, these entities interacting with them. Often they're described as divine. Sometimes they're demonic. You know, sometimes they're trickster. But no matter where you go, you always find these entities somewhere on the periphery or in the centre, especially with religion, because they're having a big influence on people. It is my contention that all these entities, every single one, belongs to the same military fleet. Now, I divide them into aliens, angels, cryptids, and demons. Demons being demonic or kind of the shadow person type thing. So every single one of them, I believe, comes from the same military, and they're part of a massive psyops. So, for example, the UFOs, excuse me, triangular, cylindrical, round. They're all come from the same fleet. Every single alien ever seen, whether grey, reptilian, Arcturian, they're all for the same fleet. And that's part of this campaign to deceive us.
So when you say fleet, then, Rick, are we? I mean, obviously you're adamant it's fleet, but are we talking about the same intelligence, though?
Yeah, because ultimately it goes back to the same thing. I believe the group that's behind this is another group of humans for another planet Earth. That's where the evidence leads me to, Paul.
So you're going to talk about what you call the picture.
Yeah, the Pesha. Yeah.
So before you break into that, then, Rick, because this is what confused me at first, because I thought, the picture, describe that element, because that's going to be important in where we're going with this.
Right. when I realised that it was another group of humans for another planet Earth, I had to find a name that kind of identified them for what they are and what they're about. So PESA is an acronym. It stands for parasitic, engineered, cannibalistic human aggressors. So this other group of people, what happened was they achieved what I call biological immortality, meaning as long as they're not physically killed and as long as they have access to their medicines and their technology, they can continually keep rejuvenating their genome. Effectively, they've cheated aging. As long as they have this stuff, they can keep on going. So we're talking immortality. However, there's a problem with that. If they're on a planet Earth like us, the near star will be a yellow dwarf star, which goes giant after 10 billion years. So their planet will almost be consumed. Certainly, it will be wiped out for all life. Life will be stopped living in it millions of years before the sun actually touches it. So they have to get off that planet and they have to find another planet and to work their way into. And there's another thing that they're doing. All these missing civilizations, and I have counted up to 25, what I believe happened to them is they were harvested. When the PESA come, they give us two things. They give us astronomy and they give us agriculture. They build these big stone calendars that we could learn from, and they grow the population. So what you're seeing now is in places like the Amazon jungle that they thought was virgin rainforest, they're finding no, there were settlements underneath it. Same with the Congo forest, which they thought was virgin rainforest. They found palm nuts. So these things were getting farmed. So it's my contention that what they've been doing is, for thousands of years, cropping certain populations for certain parts of the earth. They allow nature to take it back over again, and then when we come along, at first we didn't even realise what's happened. We didn't realise anybody's missing it. It's not until you start to add up to where these people in the missing civilization, because millions of people moving north, south, east or west leave a trail. The only way to disappear without leaving a trail is to go up the way. And it's my contention. So what they believed is this sounds familiar, that their ecosystems starting to collapse, there's overpopulation, there's all sort of strife, and their gods will come and take them away in their chariots. So I believe a lot of these people literally walked aboard these UFOs thinking that they were getting saved by their gods, where really they were getting taken away and consumed, either as food or as some sort of body product. Because I suspect with the immortality, you just can't sort of have some sort of operation and then you're immortal. I believe it's an ongoing process because nature has worked death into us. I mean, death is part of the cycle. So they're constantly trying to stay ahead of this. So they need the best food that humans can eat as other humans. And that's the kind. Sorry.
What would you say then to anybody listening to you now, Rik, that's saying that all these are theories? What would you say? How could you lead them to any form of proof of what you're talking about?
Well, I think you have to look at it as a whole, Paul. This is why I've taken so long to get here, because been able to present all this different stuff. So I hope that I'm wrong about this. Let me say that right for the start. If somebody can make better sense of the things that are going on in the world, you know, the cryptids, the UFOs, where did the missing civilizations go? Why is it that a dog man in Canada acts the same as a dog man in South East England? You know, how is it the rake in Switzerland is acting in the same way as rakes in China? You know, when you look at it, when you stand back and look at the complete thing, there's something amiss here. You know, we should not have 7-foot canines walking about. That should not happen. So anybody, I would just say, well, look at what I'm looking at. And if you could come up with something that makes better sense, then I will absolutely jump aboard. You know, that I don't want this to be true. I wish this was wrong.
Okay. Any views on this so far, Rev?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Rik is saying is, I see where he's coming from. We both have a very similar view, and my conclusion as to what's happening is pretty much the same as Rik's, apart from it's in Earth as opposed to out of Earth.
Yeah.
But that's the only sort of difference I can see where we both come from. We've come from totally different.
Yeah, that's
aspects.
right. See, Paul, you've often stated that you believe they're not travelling to us because of distance, and I agree with that. I think there are bases dotted all over the planet. Antarctica for sure, perhaps in Mariana Trench, Lake Baikal, absolutely. The invasion already started a long time ago.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right, mate.
Dark, yeah.
I want
Yeah, sorry.
So I believe that their bases are pitted all around the world, and it has to be like that because, for example, if there's ever an earthquake, you can guarantee within 20, 30 minutes of the earthquake, you'll see the lights in the sky. So they monitor everything. So any kind of natural disaster, they show up at because it leads to confusion, it leads to questions. Did they cause this sort of thing? So you're right, it has to be local.
So you've talked towards the fact that these other civilizations have been taken for whatever means, harvested.
Yeah.
So do you think then that the population now is at critical mass?
Yeah. If you read the last book of the Bible, Revelation, I think it's verse 14, 15, it says the harvest of the earth is ripe. Get ready for the harvest. And the metaphors, God is my shepherd, we're the sheep, and you know what happens, it's lambs to the slaughter. So you find these metaphors again and again. Actually, what we're doing is we're farming ourselves. That's really what's happening. You know, they gave us the technology, they gave us the astronomy, and that's all we needed, agriculture and astronomy. So, but this time, it's different this time because this is the big one. Because they're not only, it's one thing getting millions of people to walk aboard your UFO and take them away, that's one thing. It's another thing to take a planet. That's a big, big deal. And they have to get that right. So
have you been, are all these theories and all this research, is it what you've come to yourself, or have you been given any outside information to aid you with this, Rik?
The guy that put me on track for this, he told me something. This was more than 25 years ago, and he told me who the creator was. Okay, and because I had waited all my life for some sort of big secret, I knew something was coming, Paulie. I just didn't know what it was. So when I met this guy, what he told me was so profound that for 2 weeks I was just lost. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep because I knew what he was telling me the truth. I went my own way for him. So for the past 25 years, it's been my own thing. But obviously, I reach out to certain people like yourself, Paul, that I feel I could see a connection with.
Yeah, and I need to say there that, you know, you travelled a long way to speak to me at a conference in Pontefract years ago, and you didn't even have tickets for conference, and you came down because you wanted to connect. So passionate were you about what you wanted to share. So why are we seeing these things more now, Rik? Because of this time that we're in, obviously. But
yeah, it's heading towards a conclusion. What's happening, if you look about the 1990s, all sorts of cryptid encounters hit a real low peak. It was almost as like they were fading away. For the mid-90s up, all of them have been ramped up. And it doesn't matter if it's the Rik, it doesn't matter if it's the Dogman, they're all ramping up because they're all part of the same fleet. So for example, you know, people will be in the woods and they'll hear the Dogman paralleling them or walking behind them and stopping when they stop. Well, how is it that a Rik does the same thing halfway around the world? How is it that these entities are, you know, running out in front of cars? You know, what's that all about? Or somebody's walking by and the Dogman lets out a growl. Now, if the Dogman didn't growl, the person would have walked past. So why are they letting themselves be seen? And part of it is, I believe, the wild places, the cryptids hold. You know, they hold the wild places and they own the night. And I think what they're actually doing is almost corralling us into urban areas, because now they're coming into areas that were never seen before, and the numbers of them. So they're getting seen in numbers 2s and 3s, and they're also being seen different types of cryptids together. So that's the whole thread. And these things are, they're super soldiers. I don't know how else to describe them. And we've already started down that path. You know, there's already corporations think to themselves, well, wait a minute, if we create this hybrid, you know, we can do what we want with him. There'll not be any military sort of justice if he dies on the battlefield, anything like that. So what we're seeing is, when we think of a super soldier, Paul, we think of the guy standing with the night goggles and the big rifle and all that. That's not what a super soldier is. You think of a dogman. It could go for years without any kind of supply. It could hunt anything. It could eat anything. It's been designed to be perfect for its environment, even right down to its immune system, because I believe they have the immune system of saltwater crocodiles and sharks. The saltwater crocodile is just a gene that produces these antibiotics, basically, that well, you see crocodiles, they can have their leg ripped off and be lying in the pool, just shitting and whatever, but not got an infection. Same with sharks. You think that sharks are immune to all sort of viral disease. So if you go back to the Pesha, undoubtedly those genes will be in their genome, because it just makes sense to do that. But when you're creating your super soldier, then you can't send them out there and then be ill and have to go on with the UFO to get them. They need to be able to do their own thing.
It's a big thing for people to get their heads round, Rick. That you're saying that these beings are created, and the almost cherry picked the sort of genetic superior parts from other animals.
That's right.
But that's already happening, and we know it's happening now. So
exactly.
Do you want to give us any examples of how it's happening now, and how it could be applied to what you're talking about?
Well, there's what they call transgenic mice, transgenic chicken, and what these are, these have the mouse embryo has been fused with other cells. Now they destroy these entities after 28 days. They're not allowed to go any further. But technically, that's a chimera, Paul. When you fuse two species together, then you've already crossed that line. So what I'm saying is, what's theoretically possible as we look at how you go 100,000 years down the line, that absolutely, I cannot see any other way to explain a dogman. But I mean, if you look at the dogman, there's certain issues, right? For a start, it has hands on the forelimbs and it has paws on the back limbs. I cannot find any example, living or extinct, of an animal that has paws on the back limbs and hands on the front limbs. If it has paws on the back, I'll have paws on the front. If it's got hands on the front, I'll have feet on the back. There's just no getting round about that. That seems to be 100% real. So how could it be that this entity has these abilities? How can it be that a dog-headed entity can speak? You know, but when you think about it, if you're engineering the voice box, pin it at the right place, if you give sort of mobility in the lips and that, because that's how we do it, normally animals can't do that, but if you give them these wee things, it's no Shakespeare they're speaking, but it must be terrifying to hear them actually say something. So we've already started, it's like the wee fish that glow in the dark, Paul, for the pet trade. They've had a gene put into them bioluminescence. I believe that's the same gene when you see glow in the eye darks and the dogmen, glow in the eye, the dark Sasquatch. It's the same principle at work.
So basically what you're saying then, the only way that these things can come into being is if they're nothing natural. They're manufactured by the higher intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think they play four roles, Paul. I think they start off sort of being like, say, worshipped as a god. You know, the Native Americans, they seen these entities as something sort of divine or semi-divine. And then the next culture comes along. So when Christianity comes along, their god then becomes demonic. So now, it's got red eyes that glow in the dark, it must be a demon. Then we get to the point where science comes along and it's saying, well, this is clearly an animal. It must be an animal that this is because it fits all these features. And the fourth and final metamorphosis is when it's revealed as a man. It is a human that's been engineered with certain features in order to give it the animalistic thing. That's what makes them super soldiers.
Any views, Rev?
Well, it's all there in ancient texts that's what we were brought here, not in the form that we are now, but in a primitive form. When we were brought to this planet, it already had inhabitants, which, according to some sources, is your Bigfoot type creatures. We were then genetically messed about with so that we would become the perfect slave for them and learn how to do what they wanted us to. So that's what the ancient sort of texts and beliefs say. So it all, what Rik's saying, all stacks up with that. Trying to think, does a kangaroo, does that have kind of like hands, or does it have claws? I'm just trying to think. That was the only example I could think of.
Raccoon.
I mean, if you think about it, it's claws, and it's kind of an extended claw on the back as well. I mean, it's a good example, Rev. I'll grant you that. But it's still no working how the hands of a dogman work. I mean, they can manipulate handles. You know, the only way to develop the primate hand, our hand, is to be in the trees for millions of years. That's where the hand comes from. There's no other scenario, no other environment that produces it. This is why about 90% of animals with opposable thumbs are primates. You see? And then when you go back to the aliens, for example, the greys, see, another reason that you can see they're not real species is sometimes you see them with just minus a thumb or with 3 fingers. You know, that specimen would be incapable of the precision grip. And you need that grip in order to build the circuit boards to get you where you're going. So when you see things like that, and these cosmetic changes are just about appearance, so that right away we think, oh, we're different for them. You know, I mean, every sort of alien encounter sort of involves telepathy, mind speak, and yet the same thing happens with cryptids. You know, so here's this ability that exists nowhere in nature, and yet it's found in alien species and it's found in cryptid species. I would suggest that it's the same thing. You know, it's from the same food source.
Now we get into it. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't mean people listening can't relate to a lot of what you're saying, but that ties that part of it together. That's a good point, that Rik. You know that you know, like you said, we talk about the alien and the mind speak. It's the easiest way of describing it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And people talk about the cryptid and the mind speak. So you think all that goes hand in hand then?
Yeah, I can't see how that could be separated. It occurs nowhere in the natural world, and yet it occurs in the aliens with their advanced technology, and then it just so happens to appear with the cryptids. But I mean, there are other things as well. See, if you look at the reptilians, okay, mammals have what's called a 6-layer neocortex. Now, only mammals have this, and it's very prominent in humans. So this allows us to do all the kinds of higher thought, the reasoning, all the spatial stuff. This allows us to do it. Reptiles simply don't have that. They didn't need that. They've existed for 315 million years, so they've covered virtually everything, but they've not covered that. So when you get that, and then you get the communication, well, I mean, reptiles can't speak. They should be incapable of doing the things that the reptilians and the UFOs are doing. You know, it shouldn't be possible. And then again, we come back to the prehensile grip. The only reptile that I could find in the world that has some sort of specialised hand is the chameleons, and they have fused fingertips together for going into the branches. So there is no way that a reptilian could have evolved intelligence and have the prehensile grip in order to create a UFO. So if you imagine the reptilians in the UFO, if you take their suits off, Paul, put them back in the swamp, you recall it at home. You know, they're built for multi-purpose, some of them. And you could see that it just can't fit. You can't hit it both ways. You can't see that nature's no working and, you know, just try to dismiss it. It's there when you really look deep, mate.
So you've turned this with your I'm loath to call it theory because of all work that you've put into it, but your line of thinking, Rik, you've turned this. It's almost like it's a god. It's a godhead that's created this You probably don't thank me for saying it like
Well,
that, but
well-
it's the one where you're talking
Well-
about nothing else.
Well, certainly, Paul. They see the being who claims to be God. That's the leader of the Pesha. Okay, they're physical flesh and blood. When I hear this thing, oh, the UFOs come along and we worship them as God. No, they told us they were gods. Imagine a dogman walking out a UFO and then does all his maneuvers. Imagine he speaks to you in your mind. Imagine he picks up a 600-pound boulder and throws it. The UFO fires a burst of a laser beam, destroys a 200-year-old tree. Once you see that, and that's reflected in the Bible, because in Genesis chapter 3, I think it's verse 5 maybe, it says, and God came down and was walking in the garden. What that's referring to, Paul, what I believe it's referring to, is this is when they were looking for our ancestors. They found them, they tracked them, they didn't give up until eventually our ancestors had to deal with them. And then, so when you think of Anubis, the Egyptian god, he could well have walked out and says, I'm Anubis, you will start worshipping me.
Right, okay. So is there nothing out there that in the realms of unexplained phenomena then that doesn't in your world, we'll say, your work, Rik, that doesn't come back to this picture?
Well, look, Paul, obviously there are genuine cryptids out there, meaning undiscovered animals.
Right.
We're finding them every year. However, when I'm talking about cryptids, I'm talking about what we as a community understand the cryptids to be. But you're right, all the so-called paranormal stuff, everything that's attributed to all these different causes, isn't it? It only comes from the one cause, and that includes what you went through and what you're going through the new, Paul. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I believe that they select people, not just select, actually maybe a generation or two in advance, decide on a person, and then they start bringing stuff to that person. So
do you think then that we're not stepping away from this, but do you think then that they map people's lives out, or they steer people's lives?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Look, how difficult do you think it would be to hack into the DVLA or the computers of the government? It's no problem at all. Absolutely, they pick certain people. And could I just give you a quick example, Paul?
No, take as long as you like.
The old woman that shouted to you, die like poison, the guy that shouted to you about stop bringing down the light, and Mr. and Mrs. Tick, okay? These undoubtedly were operatives. They're not to the same extent as the cryptids are. However, they are operatives, and they are there to take you on a course. So you end up naming your book Bringing Down the Light because that made sense, but that was put to you. Now, that's quite a sort of a brazen way to do it, but you're already in this, Paul. So somebody like Rev, just quickly, I have to say this. See that time that you saw the cryptid and I think it was you're hiding under the tree? Yeah. I'll bet you any money at you were there. It put on a display for you. See that glide? I mean, that's gone into something, another area, because that means there has to be lift and thrust. But I would promise you, mate, because when they're dealing with somebody like a gamekeeper, they're not dealing with a natural person in the woods. You're so at ease, you have a different look at things, and it really takes a different will to be a gamekeeper. So what I would have done was it would have done massive circles, just checking where you are before I went in, because I've seen this before. They've done this with hunters before. They know the hunters in the hide, they make the screaming sounds, and then it walks past as though you've found something. You've luckily had a glimpse. Almost certainly it's been set up. And I think that second time, that's what put me onto the line that I think that you also have been chosen for stuff. Because, look, 1 or 2 encounters with a dogman, I'll give you that. But when you say that you've had encounters with the shadow people, no, that means that shadow person's been assigned to you. And the orbs and that you've been seeing, mate, all that kind of phenomena, I believe it's electromagnetic energy, EMEs I call them. It's like energy that's been programmed to act in a certain way. So it can make itself into a shadow person, or it can morph itself into a ball of light. Okay, so that's the extent. And I know that you believe that you chose us through previous lives. I understand where you got that. But honestly, mate, what I would say to you is either when you were a kid or before you were born, because with Paul, it was before he was born, it's already decided what they're going to give you. See, I would have thought that 10 different people give them 10 different encounters, but it doesn't work like that. What they do is they seem to hammer one person. So this person's mission in life becomes to get this truth out. Whatever it is, just looking for answers. And when you look at Paul and when you read Night People, it's absolutely a clinical example of this sort of thing, what he went through now. You know, and see the beings that you were seeing, Paul, when you were a kid, or the beings that your grandkids have seen, they've all been sort of thin and emaciated. You know, if you put a light on them, they could be an angel. If you put a dark hair on them, they could be a demon. It's all the same mob, everything.
Okay. Yeah. It's difficult, not difficult, but you know, you put up a good case. I just want to say one thing, and we don't dwell on it. 34 minutes, sometime during the 34-minute section, I don't know if anybody saw it, but I saw a light go over the top of Rik.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I'm I won't say absolutely certain because everybody's talking, but I'll be having a look afterwards. So I hope other people do. And
damn it, they found me.
They found you. Well, who can say? What do you think the military know about this then, Rik?
The military know about what's been happening on their land. There's a reason, for example, that case 20 years ago when the dogman broke into the military base. There's a reason. If you do someone in the military base, it goes all the way up, it goes back to the government. So the military know what they're dealing with, but the military don't know what they actually are. You know, there's no doubt they're trying to study them as bipedal canids if we stick with the dogmen, whereas really what they should be saying is, oh, wait a minute, this has been engineered. This is something way beyond where we are. So they have no any more clue than anybody else, Paul. And what's very clever is the patient there to divide society up. So they pick a person such as yourself, just working class guy, Paul. You go through your life bringing society with you. You find people like Rev who have had their own experiences, and you become like a formidable group. So it doesn't matter what the government tells you. You know these entities exist. You know the lights are real. See, so all they're doing is getting caught up in the pressure trap, divide and conquer, fear and wonder. That's what they use.
It is difficult, isn't it? And I think Rev will agree. I think a lot of people in chat will agree, because obviously we're all here looking for our own answers and all looking to see what we can find out. And Rev's just gone from it. It is difficult, sort of trying to get my head around the fact that you're saying it's all from one source, but at the same time, I'm not in a position to argue with you because I don't know any more than you anyway.
Let me give you an example of the shadow people, Paul. Right now, I believe the shadow people are created for electromagnetic energy, and that they are sent on missions. So what makes me think they're electromagnetic energy? Well, for the first thing is they'll set off the EMF detectors. You know, if an EMF detector's gone off when a shadow person is, that's a good sign that there must be electromagnetic energy. But also the other things, they jam electronics. So lights, cameras, that sort of thing will often die when the person gets in contact with either cryptid or the shadow person. Immediately, stuff like that goes off. And then it comes back on when you've left the area. You know, everything's back to normal. The only way to jam the frequencies is the military use radio waves and microwaves to do it. So what I'm suggesting is that's what they're giving off. So that means that's why there's no the photos that there should be. And my third example is, and I know you're aware of this, Paul, they could power up implements that are switched off. So for example, a food blender sitting with its plug out, or a light that's switched off, the light goes on. And the only way to explain that is, if you have electromagnetic energy, you can create electricity. If you have electricity, you create electromagnetic energy. So for that light to go on that's switched off, there has to be a power surge, electrons going through it. If the shadow person, if this has all been programmed and the shadow person goes to that light, surges the electricity through it, the light comes on and then it goes off. Or the food blender. You know, there are numerous examples. The only way to do that is if it's electromagnetic energy. And in 2018, scientists at MIT bonded the first 3 photons together, because light photons are massless, they didn't interact. If you could create mass with them, then you could start building what's called photonic matter. And this is a real thing. So we've already started on that path of photonic matter. What I'm suggesting is the shadow people that's how far it could go. And I'm sure that Rev has got his own one, and I'm sure you've got your own one. And I'm sure a lot of the things that you've witnessed, Paul, and things that have come through in your book has been the same entity that's programmed in such a way. Because it strikes me as your dad definitely had stuff. Obviously, you've got stuff. When Mary met up with you, she started getting stuff. I've got 4 examples of your daughter seeing stuff, and I've got at least 3 examples of your grandkids. All these things get back to you, and then you take them out. Okay? So I think that when you're dealing with a shadow person, what you're dealing with is someone that's morphed into that shape and knows when you're alone. Because even just go with your electrical signature, because obviously we're electrical animals, our brains are highly electric. They can detect who's in the house, when's not in the house, and that's when they start. So you'll get the tapping, the scratching, or they will select somebody and do it for one person and not do it for the other. It's all about causing turmoil. You see, there's this sort of thing that people have heard them saying that they're harvesting fear. That's not quite it. By creating that level of fear, they're creating that level of control. If somebody's terrified, you could control that person far better than any other way. So all these things are committed to causing terror, because they shouldn't exist. Why else would a dog man run in front of a car unless it was wanting to be seen? There's no other reason. And animals didn't act like this, you know. So what reason is there for to show yourself? Because eventually these people get a fright, they will go into some site that about stories, and they will recount their story. And when it's coming from the heart, when they're genuinely terrified, it makes it more impressive. So when they're using their operatives, they didn't want them to know their true source. They want you to believe it's something else.
Good points, honestly, Rick. And I don't know whether people have realised, and I don't realise because I'm listening tonight. I realise because I've spoke to Rick over quite a few years. But you're actually saying things. What a lot of people will have experienced poltergeist activity. They'll have experienced electrical disturbances. Will jump to Humminby temporarily when all the power cut and the radio continued to play, and it's dressed up by other researchers, should we say. They're not dressing it up, but it's spoken about by other researchers in a different way. So people who are listening to you today are probably going, hold on a minute, this guy is going a bit over my head, some of it. But you're actually saying the same stuff. You've just coming at it from another angle.
Yeah,
I just want to
exactly.
put it over, because people should realise that when they talk about poltergeist, they talk about the mind speak, the aliens visiting people in their rooms. So how are they passing through walls? Give us an example of that, because you've just about done it anyway.
Well, an atom is 99.99% space. Okay, so whether they're moving it, whether the illusion is they're coming through the wall, but your grandson, when they're talking about the one that comes through the wall, I believe that, Paul. I believe that wall's opening up, and in things like general relativity, the numbers exist for wormholes to exist. You know, this isn't a bizarre thought. You know, creating portals coming through the fabric of society actually exists in the general relativity theory. So what I'm saying is, they're where the most advanced their thinking is, they're already there. So see, if you see things like, say, the shadow people, it's no coincidence that this is happening on TikToks, because what's happening, the pressure are going through the channels, see, here's somebody, influencer, detect them, send the shadow person, they're at their computer, and then the face peeks around the corner like that. Or the poltergeist. Now, there are certain rules that seem to apply. The shadow person, solid black, it will move things, doesn't usually see things. The poltergeist, you never ever see a form, You never ever hear a voice. All you see is things getting moved about. And then you have what I call the spirits or ghosts. They're always either grey, white, or black. A sort of combination of these colours, but a deathly look. So what I'm saying is, each of them comes from the same source. The same ball of energy can morph into a shadow person. And if you doubt this, think it like this. If you tried to explain to a caveman how a signal for a TV works, that the pictures that you see on that are coming through the air and you didn't see them, I mean, you can see the difficulty. What I'm suggesting is that those pictures are becoming four-dimensional, three-spatial, one in time, and can actually interact with you. And I think there are examples of that where there have been animals, entities shot at point-blank range with guns, Paul, and haven't even flinched. You know, there's something seriously amiss there that needs explaining. And I think the only thing that can explain it is their photonic matter.
That's great. I honestly, Rick, love it or hate it, I find this fascinating. And have you got anything to ask Rick before we kind of move on to some questions?
Yeah, so in terms of solid mass, essentially a brick wall is just a number of atoms lined up. So it's a set of frequencies that are placed together.
What I'm saying is that space exists here, Rev. If they have managed to manipulate it so that that comes like that, I didn't have a problem with that because I know they could put tunnels through the fabric of space. That's the only same in the mission 411. I believe they're getting grabbed by portals, and that's how they're disappearing like that. So I think that they're so advanced that there's really nothing can stop them from doing the physical barriers, and it's much as a psychological thing. They come through your wall, so your wall is ineffective. Nothing can stop it. When they're coming to get you. And that's what the underlying message is, especially with Paul's encounters and that. Doesn't matter where you go, because that's what they want. They want capitulation. They want us just to say, all right, fair enough. And just one quick thing. When you think of the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Now that's in the Gospels. That's all about every day millions of people chant. We want them to come in. This is the level of sort of toxicity that they've put inside our mind, Rev.
Okay. You know, I spend time up on cliff tops. Rev's been had a UFO sighting, or let me correct myself. His partner had a UFO sighting a few weeks ago. It almost feels, and I don't mean that the way you're talking, which is good, that it's a waste of time us looking because it's only going to present when it wants to, isn't it?
Aye, but that's what you've been up against all your life, Paul. The difference now is if you look at the phenomena through this lens, you start to see what's going on behind it. And that's the real thing, because it has to be unmasked. You know, it can't keep going. They have a conclusion that they're going to. And I believe after listening to one of your guests, it'll go in the back in the Nibiru. When the Nibiru shows, there's a good chance that they're going to come at the back of that. So I would say it's a very opposite of just getting up. We can't get up. That's what they want. They want us just to capitulate and just, because if the dogmen walk out the forest, what are you going to do?
Yeah, okay.
You know, that's the power they actually have, Paul.
So what about the people then that claim that we'll jump to the super soldier temporarily?
Right.
I mean, I don't know a lot about them, but the people that claim that they're actually people walking about, I don't know, people like my neighbour down the street or whatever, and they're super soldiers. Is this just fictional?
No, it's a bit more than that. See, we know that they're able to download information, right? They're able to download it straight into your subconscious. And I spent a wee bit of time looking into the people that are claiming to be super soldiers, and I could see they were genuine. I could see they really believed what was going on for them. Now, the things they were saying was breaking the laws of physics. So I knew it couldn't be right what they were saying, but they believed it was, Paul, and that's what counts, because then you get that belief. So if you're 2-year-old, pressure come along, they download a whole lot of information into your mind, go to the next person, download it, and you were on that team with that team. This is how I believe they're doing it. This is how I think they get around the reincarnation. They download information into our psyches. So all these different groups, what it does, it divides society again and again. So the super soldiers, they think they've got a side of it that nobody else has got. Of course, what I say to them is, well, why has the government not killed you? I mean, that's really, if you were really what you claim to be, they would kill you. But as you know, but I can see their belief. So you've got the aim, you've got the abductees, you know, you've got all these different things. And what they keep doing is they want 100% of the population to believe in UFOs, but they want it broken up into all the different segments. And one of the segments that they've done with you, Paul, is about the light. Is it an intelligent light? Now, you have spoken for the heart. Everything you've said about that reflects what you've been told. Is there intelligence in the light? Absolutely. Absolutely there is. Is it the final thing? No. It's just another form. But that's, see, I get Paul's uncomfortable with this, but I know that when they select certain people, they're like prophets. They're bringing them something that the population isn't aware of. So you brought forward, is the light an intelligence in itself? They're good questions, Paul, but that was what you were supposed to do. That's what you were nudged towards. That's why the old guy shouted to you, stop bringing down the light so it's stuck in your head. So that's another thing that then is used to, well, what is the lights then? Maybe it is just, intelligent light, but then where does intelligence come from? So that's how they do it. They didn't want you lying, they want you speaking for the heart. And so they give you these powerful experiences that you speak to the heart for.
Well, I like to think that, you know, I know Rev says it as it is, and if that's the thing, speaking from the heart, but it's difficult because I think maybe I know there's going to be people out there that have had deeper experiences than what I've had, what Rev's had, and they're not speaking.
Well,
I mean, you look at
look, Paul, that may indeed be the case, but what people like you have done is you have cleared the path. You have showed if you're prepared to do it, then they'll take a chance on you, and that's crucial. Okay, you made the connection with Rev because he's the right one to make the connection with experiences he's had. That's how they do it. They build sort of out the way like that. The further you go out, the less experience, but you're bringing in people who are in the top. So if you take your subs and then you add their partners and then you add their family, you're talking about tens of thousands of people, Paul, that you can influence with what you believe.
You know, I know it's a small channel that we've got, Truth Proof. We've got some brilliant people supporting us. Well, we have. It goes without saying. But I know what we're about, though, and I think I speak for Rev and everybody else, is that we're trying to push out this multi-phenomena. Whereas you've been saying, like, they want to separate everything, the poltergeist, the UFO, the alien, the cryptid. And maybe there is a role here then, because what we're doing is saying everything's linked. And although I'm not speaking it in the same language you're speaking it, Rik, I can kind of relate to that. I probably haven't got words for it. I don't know if Rev has, but
look, Paul, sorry,
I was going to say, it's just the demon alien situation, isn't it? It's because we're talking about a varied subject where initially each group's investigated what they've investigated and come up with their own terms, and the same sort of followed on. So we can't, in order to push forward, we need to have a unified language, really, don't we? That's
that's right. It's bridging all these separate interests and saying, look, see, when you feel watched or anxiety, that's because electromagnetic energy has that effect on the human body. So when a shadow person's in your room, when you're feeling like that, that's why you're feeling like that. That's why you feel like that with a cryptid. I believe virtually all can be explained. There's a way to get to it. And this is about to start it. And I can't do this with people like Paul, because I've not been through what Paul's been through, you know. But I would advise anybody to read 9 people in order to understand how they use a person, a family, in order to further their own agenda. Because Paul had to reach the conclusion himself where he says, right, I'm going to go, I'm going to search for this, I'm going to get answers, I'm going to keep going to the cliffs at Bempton. You know, that's it. And I believe you were social engineered to do that, Paul. I believe that's your territory.
It's a weird one to find yourself out in them locations, I've got to admit, and people must scratch their head thinking, what's he doing it again for? Because literally, apart from tonight, it's been every night this week. Once to meet a witness, but you know, and nothing's happened, but it's that anticipation. But
Yeah.
after talking to you, I kind of, or listening to you, should I say, I kind of think, well, I'm wasting my time, because if Rik's correct, and this is a bit tongue in cheek, Rik, not what you're saying, but what I'm saying, because I'll still keep doing it. But if Rik's correct, I may as well stop going up, because if it's going to happen, it'll happen here in this room. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, I understand why you could see it like that, Paul. You know, but however, it's not going to stop for you. You need to scratch this itch. You're going to keep going to the class no matter what. And I think that's right. I think that's your way of getting information. But however, there is a set amount of encounters laid down. What's due for you isn't going to go by you, Paul. And Ray, if you're the same.
Well, Rev, we're going to say something then, Rik. So we're just
sorry, Ray.
No, it's fine. It's all good.
I was just going to say that if what Rik's saying is correct, and I'm with him sort of 99% of the way with it, you're not wasting your time, because you're causing ripples.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And it's the ripples that are going to break it. So the more that we do it,
perfect,
the more it can't happen.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Paul, whether you like it or no, you're in a position of leadership. People trust you. They trust what you say. You know, you're right down to earth. You know, you're the centre of the circle. This is how it should be. And I could go on the internet, and I could find several people who have had the same thing as yourself, have been selected as children. Familial stuff has happened maybe to their grandparents, and they're at the point they're bursting, they have to go out. But you find the same things applicable to those people. It's about drawing numbers, because when you put them all together, because let's just say the government do admit there's dogmen out there. Well, we know that's right. You know, there's all that's there, so we have that independent thing.
Yeah. And we're going to jump in a minute to some questions. Just hang fire one sec, Les. I'm mixing Rev with Les. Where do we separate well, we can jump to it after questions, but where do we separate the word dogman from werewolf?
Okay.
Why do you think that's broad?
All the things that I've had the most difficult thing to accept, the change in shape, the shape shifting has been the most difficult one. Okay. I'm still up in the air about it. Is their technology so advanced that they could engineer an entity to change from one to another? Well, look, you look at a butterfly, a caterpillar changes into chrysalis, changes into butterfly. It's there in nature. So right at the moment, I'm leaning towards that somehow werewolves exist. It may be that the person that's changing has a lot of stem cells in them, that like that. They may be carrying things, so you think the attack is random, but it's no. The werewolf bites this person who has the natural genes. So werewolves again is changing, is shape shifting. The dogmen stay permanently the same thing.
I was going to say I don't think maybe shape shifting is the word. I think maybe it's camouflage.
I mean, that works. Yeah, give that, Rev. That's right. It's just all the things. But what I did find is everything that I started out questioning eventually came to be. So with the shapeshifting, it's in all cultures. Every culture has shapeshifters of some sort, just as all different things. So for me, it speaks, as much as I didn't want to accept that, it speaks to me being real. But it's just mind-blowing.
I suppose a tribe in the Amazon that's seen chameleons would understand what the camouflage was, so they would know the difference. So yeah, you probably got a good point there.
Yeah, I'd never looked at it as shape shifting, and I know that's where it leads. But I always look upon that kind of analogy as we're looking at movies and we're looking at silver bullets and we're looking at the moon, and I've never been in that camp. All I've done is take those witness reports, and I just think I always thought we were just splitting hairs and we just invented a new name for what was the same thing. Shape-shifting didn't figure in it for me, Rik. These things existed, and as far as I were concerned, and the dogmen, the word that you're using, the name, and I'm not saying it's wrong, is just the new term that is just sort of been reinvented. Doesn't mean what you're talking about is not right, that could apply to what people term as the werewolf. And what a crazy subject we're talking about, people. But but listen, we can't make a documentary like Wolflands and not realize we'd be doing a disservice to the witness if we started holding his hands up and saying, I don't think these things are real. I believe who's told me these things, so I'm going to run with it.
Yeah, you didn't get to pick and choose, Paul. If it's happening to the witness, if that's what they're saying, you've got to go with me, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so. Right, we've got Les on. Look at him. He's got his arms showing tonight. He's feeling a bit buff. Oh yes.
Been
Which way
working
are the beach, Les?
Yeah, I've been working out, guys. So yeah, fascinating so far, Rick, and I've been totally absorbed by what you've been saying. And so of our audience on the stream tonight. So got some great questions in. So if I can fire one or two at you, Rick. Yeah. A little bit offbeat because we ain't talked about this tonight, but I'll show the question on the screen for you now. It's from Alex Thompson. A question for Rick. Do you have a theory on what the creature is in Loch Ness?
Yeah. I believe it's a genetically engineered seal to look like a plesiosaur. When you look at the amount, see if you think of Loch Ness all the years ago, it had to be crossed, okay? Like you couldn't go around it, had to be crossed. They use cryptids, military animals, in certain ways, and the sea monsters, for want of a better word, or lake monsters, they move them all around. So what I think has happened, they started out with a body of leopard seal. They gave it the genes to make the neck long like a giraffe. They give it a square head of the horse. They give it the flippers of either a seal or a sea lion. Okay, so we just some cosmetic. However, I have to add, all these animals also have a human brain and are capable of some sort of human speech. It's the only things that we give to them. So I believe the Loch Ness Monster is up. There's more than one, by the way. They use different ones in order to cause different effects. And it's all about reality. Science says dinosaurs become extinct. But if a dinosaur's been seen, what else is wrong? So this is what this is about. It's about upsetting everything. But I believe she's real.
Okay.
Wow, that's a different take on it. Yeah. I've got a question from Ronald Booth. Ronald Booth is asking, hi, why would they give us intelligence and let us weaponize? Why not keep us as battery humans?
Well, what we're doing is we're essentially battery humans because we're growing ourselves. What they have done is find the most effective method where they need the least amount of involvement. See, there's going to be a massive war because what the Pesh are thinking is, let them destroy themselves, break down, let them use their weapons up, and when they're done, that's when we'll come. The weapons are virtually useless against the technology they have. So they're not worried about that. And as for nuclear weapons, we all know that the UFOs have been seen out of them, knocking them down, the laser beam coming out of them. I don't believe there'll be such a thing as a world war because then the Pesha lose the planet. But in order to stop that, the Pesha have to be mobile in a matter of minutes and seek down these missiles. However, they will let some go. Look, the population's 8 billion. When you read the Bible, it says a quarter will die of famine and due to the sword. So that's talking about weapons. So there will be some sort of world catastrophe, but they'll know better how on nuclear war because the Pesha can't allow that. So they
you kind of jumped in and stopped my argument basically because I was just going to say if there's going to be some kind of catastrophe or some kind of conflict, then it's not worth harvesting a planet if we've destroyed most of it, is it?
Exactly. If you've got 8 billion people now, you could lose 1 billion to starvation, disease, you could lose a quarter to weaponry. That still leaves you 4 billion people to harvest. So they've took into account all these factors before they make their move. However, we're still 8 billion people. They get round us by breaking us into these wee bits. They want everybody to believe, but to believe differently so we can't unite. Okay, so that's why you will find when you see the Sasquatch, next person sees a big cat, next person sees a dogman. So they all agree there's something out there, but they can't agree on what it is. and that becomes the division that keeps us separate to ourselves.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a question from Rob Hudson, and I've got to caveat this before I read it out.
I'm glad you are doing, yeah.
Yeah, it's been heavily written by fact checkers, so I guess we've got to be careful with this one. But if I read it out, does Rik think that the missing children of Lahaina, Hawaii, may have been taken by these aliens?
Just be careful around it, Rik.
I mean, I can't.
Oh.
And really, my sense is no, because why would they risk exposing themselves to a handful of children? When it comes to that, it did something suspicious going in Hawaii. It certainly looks like it, but as what I'm seeing now, it's no. Because even taking a few thousand people, that's not worth it. You know, that only does one person so long when you're using the products. So it would be on a bigger scale that they would do it. They'll not reveal themselves for someone small.
Okay, I've got another question from Ronald Booth. Is it not that we are expanding more on Earth that we are seeing more of these cryptids?
No, there's definitely an increase in the cryptids. If you go back to the 50s or 60s, you see the odd sighting here or there, because that's been so that we can look back and say, oh, one was seen there, one was seen then. The cryptids can't exist how it's claimed. Look, tigers are going extinct. Lions are in trouble. How is it that this super predator is the only one in the world that seems to be gaining? You know, I sometimes hear the argument, well, we've got more cameras to take photos of them now. No, you can take photos of them because they're coming into urban areas. They're running in front of cars so dash cams can get them. They are showing themselves on purpose. They weren't always here like that. We know that Flaxton, we know every now and again, was it something like every 600 years, Paul, the werewolf dogman turns up, seen by a few, terrorised a few folk, goes away again. That's what tends to be happening. It's only recently now they're keeping their soldiers in a more permanent basis so that everybody is running into them.
Okay.
Not so much a question, this one, Rik, but a statement. Ginge 197 is saying many people refer to dogman's hands as raccoon hands.
Well, it's a good point because raccoon hands are very flexible, but they're not capable of the precision grip. They are sensitive because raccoons go in the water and they could use the tip of their fingers to feel things. So they are good, but they're no. I understand why you say the dog man hands look like raccoon hands, but the dog man could open doors. You know, it could do things that it shouldn't be able to do with hands that it shouldn't have.
So sorry, go on, Les. Go on.
Yeah, I'll just get this question out from Mally Dodgson. Welcome to the show, Mally, if you're still with us. Question, do you think the red glowing eyes in dogmen or infrared lenses, like camera infrared? Thanks. Can't seem to... Oh, right. Okay, I won't read the rest out. But yeah, that's the question.
I think that the eyes are either permanent or they have a nictitating membrane that glows, so they can put the glow on when they want and take it off when they want. There is some, it doesn't, I believe it doesn't give them any sort of preferential sight or that. It doesn't help with anything like that. Look, they've got extra rods and extra cones in their eyes. You know, they've got at least 4 cones, which gives them 99 million shades to look at. So I think some of them, the red glow is almost certainly permanent, and I think some of them, it's a nictitating membrane, like the crocodiles have or the birds of prey have, where it crosses the eye, and they could use it like that, and then they could take it back if they have to.
Okay, I just want to get this one in. Bridget and then Bosch. Question, where/how do the reptilians fit into the equation, Rik?
They're just like everybody else, the other aliens. They have their part to play. Now, depending on who you ask, some will say the reptilians do the bidding of this group, reptilians do the bidding of that group. It's perfect because what it does is just creates distrust in that. They are just another group of entities who answer to these humans who are the highest level. Okay, these are soldiers. They are expendable. They're very long-lived because to get your money's worth out of some of the genetically engineered, you've got to let it go for they'll be thousands of years old, some of them. But then they reach a certain point, and I believe they kill them. They're not allowed to go beyond a certain level. They're not given immortality, but of course they're not told that at the time.
I'm just going to finish this session with this last question, Paul.
Okay,
and it's from Patricia Adams Wright. Rik, what personal experiences have you had?
I mean, the things that I have had just added to it. I was already on the path. I mean, there was one time we were in the car and the gold light lit up the car or in the bus. It went off and then come on again. And then there was the time I woke up and the shadow person was strangling me 2 mornings in a row. And it was mental because, see, in my dream rave, I was choking in my dream. And I started to panic. I realised I was in a dream and I threw my head and I opened my eyes and I seized this thing standing over me. And what I did, it split in half. Half went to one corner, half went to the other. And it all happened that quick that I thought, oh, that was just some sort of dream. I didn't think none of it. The next day, the next morning, it happens again. So I'm in the dream again and I'm choking in the dream. And then I remember stop saying, no, I know what's going on. And I forced my eyes open. And there it was, and I made a grab for it. But I did the same thing again. It split in the middle, halfway to that side. But that was it. For some reason, maybe it was because it didn't get the reaction that it was looking for me. Because I believe a lot of times when you stand up to these things, there's no point in them trying to terrorise you. They will just move on, for the most part anyway. So I've had some experiences in that, but everything where I am, it's been more about other people's experiences. I didn't need to see a dogman to know they exist. I didn't need that luxury. You know, I didn't want any downloads into my mind that I know they're capable of doing. So this is why I prefer to seek out other people that have had these encounters.
I haven't got the answer, but what if somebody came to you with some information that flipped what you're saying on its head? Would you accept it, or would you just carry on down?
I want nothing else than to be wrong about this, Paul. I didn't want this to be the case. When I first realised what I was onto, like I said, it nearly broke me. It literally broke me in half because I knew it was the truth. So if somebody could make better sense of what I'm offering, then I would go with it in a heartbeat, an absolute heartbeat. But remember, Paul, that must have been 6 or 7 years ago that I drove down to England to see you that time.
Yeah,
Must be that anyway. At that point, I knew I wasn't ready, but what I had to do was set up to you. Because I knew you were going to be there, because I knew you were speaking at the conference to say, listen, I'll be coming back to you at some point in the future. I just need to work out what's going on. So that was the only time I knew where you were going to be, and that's why I drove down. So it's been a lot of years of getting this, and didn't forget, what I tried to do at first was dismantle this to prove it wrong. You know, I didn't run with it right away. I said, "Well, no, this can't be right." So I tried to break it, and the more I tried to break it down, the more it came back. And eventually, I just had to suck it up and start to get myself and run with it. But if somebody could show me any different, brother, I'll jump on it.
Well, what I'd like, if in questions, if possible, and obviously respectfully, but if you want to fire some questions at Rik, giving your examples why he's wrong, or why you think he's wrong,
for it.
Then let's go for that. I'm not saying you're wrong, Rik. I don't agree with everything.
No, listen, mate, that's all right. Listen, bring it on. This is what I want. That's a good suggestion, Paul. Let them come at me like that.
I think, providing nobody's coming out with abuse, I think that'd be a good thing to do. So we've got all these other examples of different types of entities, we'll call them. Greys, reptilians you mentioned.
Yeah.
Why do they seem to be at conflict with each other if they've got one? Well, and I'll call it a godhead. And I think that you don't want to call it that, so you tell me what you want to call it. But if that's the thing that's created them, then why is it putting them in some instances at odds with each other?
Because then it disguises what they are, Paul. If they're at war with each other, if they didn't go on, you're not going to think they're part of the same unit. So there's already the numbers have been calculated. There are certain ones that are expendable. That's just how it works. It's the same with the religions. All the major religions go back to the same source, but they believe in different ways. Because you can't have 8 billion people all thinking and behaving the same way, because then that's too much for them. So they break it up. And cleverly, what they do is put them at war with each other. There's only so much they can do. A Bigfoot isn't allowed to go and wipe out an entire dogman colony. But they're allowed to see conflict, because then people take that conflict, tell the story, and then it goes into the public consciousness. Oh, dogmen and the Sasquatch didn't get on, they're kind of at war with each other. Listen, when the time comes, they'll know about war with each other. they will do what they're told, and what they're told is against us and each other. So it's kind of deception, Paul.
How does religion, let's just throat net out broadly, view what you're talking about, or Christianity? You know,
right. Well, take Christianity, right? 2.2 billion subscriber adherents worldwide. Okay, a quarter of the world population. That's a big group. So then they're divided into Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant. And then that group is divided into Jesuits, Carmelite nuns. This one's broken up, and this one's broken up. They're often broken up into threes, like a conservative, a liberal, and a mystic sense here. So it's all about control, Paul. So in the Christian religion, some of them believe the rapture is imminent. And what's the rapture? When the UFO comes, or God's chariot, and it takes people away. They're going to get snatched to heaven. And it astounds me that people can't say, well, wait a minute, do you really see what's going on here? And it doesn't matter what religion you look at, me, they're all in their end time scenario. So as one branch kicks off, it kicks the other end off, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, so it's all about coming from the sky, and that's what, especially the evangelical Christians, that's what they believe. No, the Catholics so much, but they do. So they didn't care. They're prepared to, because America's going to descend into absolute chaos. That's a guarantee that will happen. That has to happen. So religion's all about control.
Okay, so we'll become grounded then, and we'll just go to cliff tops at Bempton. EMF energy. So we take EMF readers up there, little units.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. What's happening suddenly when we get really excited activity on these machines, in your opinion? Oh, well, we know that there's a spike in energy. I mean, I'm not so thick that I'm not saying that, but what's causing it?
What I would say is happening, if you can't see a cryptid approaching you, what I would suggest is an EME's approaching you, you know, a shadow person. Now, I happen to know that there have been shadow persons seen at Bempton. So whether they are there, placed there on duty, if you like, or whether they follow you there, Paul, I'm not quite sure. But if you can't see what it is, I believe it will be an EME, an electromagnetic entity, and that's what's setting the spike off.
So that will that you know, the people who go out ghost hunting and go into old buildings and locations where spirits have been seen.
Yeah,
that's not going to sit right with them, Rick, is it? Because are you saying that's what they're experiencing?
No. Listen. What I believe is the EMEs are built to be like the human soul. So I think when we're conceived, a wee spark of electricity goes with a wee bit of soul, and when we die, that electromagnetic energy breaks off and goes somewhere else. So I believe there are genuine spirits, there are genuine ghosts, for want of a better word, who will also set the EMF detectors off, because it seems to be that it's the same type of energy. So the Pesha have cleverly built these creations on the human soul, and you can see this kind of likeness how they do things. So they won't set off genuine ones, and non-genuine ones will set off the EMF detector, Paul.
And do you think there's specific areas then around? We know we call these areas of high strangeness, but
absolutely
in recent years, you know, and I sort of credit Steve Meara with this. I mean, Steve Meara's talked about positive and magnetic anomalies, and Barry Fitzgerald has as well.
Yeah.
And do you think there's a correlation to activity?
Absolutely. And usually, if you're at a hotspot, the first thing you should do is check the magnetic thing in the earth, because obviously different kinds of rock allows different EM energy to come out, but it usually always starts. So you will find some maybe magnetic anomaly, and then the phenomena presents itself around about it. Part of it is because I believe it draws energy for it. And I think they might be doing this with ley lines. They might actually be drawing energy because the abilities they use is coming from electrical organs that are finding, like the electric eel and fish like that. So I believe it starts off. And the reason why they do that, Paul, is so when the scientist comes along and says, oh, wait a minute, there's an electromagnetic anomaly here. This is what you're sensing. This is what you're getting wrong. So everybody gets a chance to be right, and everybody gets a chance to be wrong. But you're right, it usually starts on some sort of ground thing. It's bulk there. I'm sure I looked at Star Car, I'm sure there was some sort of anomaly there, Paul. You know, I'm sure somewhere near you there is that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know there's a negative magnetic anomaly at off the coast at Bempton, but it's all minimal, Rick. The machines. What do they call them? Come on, help me here. What people go into to be scanned? Come on, Paul, I can't think.
MRI scanners.
The energy that they're giving off is far greater than the magnetic anomalies around the world. So when people say positive, they're honest, meaning it's stronger than the sort of natural ground level magnetism, and the negative is weaker. But the differences aren't great.
Yeah, but with respect, Paul, you're missing the point. What it does is cause confusion. It causes doubt. If the scientists could come along and say, oh, look, electromagnetic energy causes feelings of dread and anxiety, this is what you're feeling, even though it's too weak and it doesn't explain it, Paul, that then becomes a device to sort of either harness or split people up. And you're right. You see, there is what's called the global atmospheric electrical circuit, and it's positively charged ions in the atmosphere. The Earth, however, is negatively charged, right? So that time, what Rev saw, what he saw, that gliding, what I think is happening is they're using some sort of negative energy to push down against the Earth so it repels, and then it's using some sort of either positive and attract or repel it to move them along, because it can move them in total silence. And when you're right, all these things are weak, Paul, but if you can imagine, the cryptids are putting a huge EM bubble around them. So that EM bubble is going there, and that's what I believe is drawing the energy. I mean, Nikola Tesla spoke about taking energy for the sky. You know, I think somehow he had gotten done to that. But nevertheless, somehow, it's another thing is, there's a thing what I call the power display, when a dogman will run next to a car, and the person's looking, they're looking at the speed, and the speed's going up, and the dogman's literally smiling and sticking with them. And I noticed some strange things, because I remember a few of them saying they sped up the car. The dogman was able to keep up, but it didn't move its legs any faster. So it suggests that there was some sort of source that they was harnessing. And the only thing I could find, Paul, is this global electrical circuit and the Earth's crust. So somehow that it's causing lift and somehow it's causing thrust. And I'm not sure what else can it be. It might not be exactly how it's working, but I'm sure that's the components of what's working.
Are they responsible then for the what I've called the lower silence? This strange altered state in the surroundings when people are in the presence of this weird phenomenon.
Take for example what you call the glass tunnel. Okay, if you could see what you would see as a cloud of electromagnetic energy. Now the static electricity in the air, sound is a pressure wave. So what happens is the atoms hit the atom and pass it on like that. If you have electromagnetic energy in the air, it acts as a buffer, so you can't hear the sound. Now, sometimes the animals will go quiet when the predator's around. But what you were talking about, Paul, that example you gave, they could hear the sea, and then they walk into someone and can't hear the sea. So something has to be blocking that. And the only thing that seems to fit that would be electromagnetic energy. And what I find really interesting is it shows what I suspected. You could put a patchy, for want of a better word, electromagnetic energy down. You can't see it. As each person walks into it, they might get hit with different things because it's reacting to what's inside their soul. So I think once you get your head around this, it starts to, but it's no easy, I have to say, but there has to be a principle that's stopping that sound that's coming from the sea getting to their ears. And then when you hear them talking about the sensations being watched, that's exactly the effect that electromagnetic energy has on the body.
Any views, Rev?
Yeah, so like Rick says, the whole atmosphere is charged with energy. Tesla was planning to connect to it so we could all have free energy.
Yeah.
So in order for stuff to manifest, the energy is already there.
They're drawn for that energy. That's right.
Yeah.
They're harnessing the energy that's there, Rev. That's exactly
It's
right.
already there, yeah. So when you turn to examples where there is electric, or there is an anomaly, that word, yeah,
Anomaly.
Yeah.
anomaly, yeah. There you go. It's already got a kickstart, isn't it? It's like having a battery on a car.
That's
It's already
right.
got more.
Yeah. That's
So
it.
it's going to be more prevalent in them areas because it's easier for it to do its thing.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
believe that they have abilities that we didn't understand. I mean, I believe one could stand on a ley line and know if somebody else is walking on the ley line. If you think of the ley line as some sort of continuous movement of energy, if that's what's the case, I think there's information getting transferred. And I've heard
well,
that.
I was going to say you can have people that do rituals at one end of a ley line, and that causes problems at the other end.
Yeah.
So that's how it works.
That's right. And that's what some of the standing stones were about. They were placed in order to disrupt the ley lines or try to manipulate them. So when the pressure come, the first thing they do is they scan the land to see where all these anomalies are, and then they start to build the phenomenon round about them. And they're always looking for at least 3 or 4 different answers. So if you look at the dogmen, there's a case to be made that they're supernatural. If you go with the glowing eyes, if you go with them moving without moving their legs, if you go with them cloaking themselves, there's an argument there. However, there's also an argument that they're a natural species. They hunt, they have youngsters, they have all that, and then you have the one in the middle that takes a wee bit of mace. Maybe where you were in your own documentary, Paul, touched upon everything, a wee bit of everything to say, look what's going on here. But that's how they do it. They always set up independent narratives. So somebody will come along and say, wait a minute, but it doesn't fit that. That's how they seem to be doing it.
It's a fascinating take on it. I hope Les is back. What we got, Les? More questions? Is it silent, Rev?
We'll get there. Yeah, well, I just want to bring this one in first because it is a super chat, Paul, and I'll put this on the screen. It's from Daz. Super chat and 99. Thanks for the super chat, Daz. Donation, great show, guys. Question for Rick: with the dogmen being engineered, does he believe it could still elicit a response from the use of a dog whistle when trying to find it in the wild?
Yeah, they absolutely know what the dog whistle is, and if they're hearing it, they know that somebody's behind that. They're that tuned into their environment, Daz.
Can I just get a question here from myself, Rick? Yeah, we don't know if you said there's an argument for these being physical entities, dogmen we're talking about, or there could be spiritual, there could be otherworldly or what have you. Do you think, and you said this earlier on in a conversation about walls being no barriers for some of these creatures and entities, right? Do you think these could be coming up through the earth, through the actual pores of the tree roots, the earth?
I believe that some of them, especially the emies, the energy entities. I remember reading about one story where the boys saw the dark cloud coming out the air vent, and then it gradually formed into something. So they do that sort of thing. It could just appear, but that's not how they like to do it. They like a narrative. They like it to be done in a certain way. They want you to see that it was energy and then it became solid.
Right, yeah. I mean, this is great. And I've got to bring another question up if I can find where I'm up to. Let's have a look. I've got to show this one then. From Ginge197. Does Rick think about, I know you touched on this earlier as well, I think. Does Rick think about generations of the same family lineage being abducted over time?
Absolutely. That absolutely is true. And you could see what's going on with Paul. So there was Paul, his mum and dad, on the way back to Denby, saw the 2 rabbits and the guinea pig. So we know for a fact that they've been exposed to it. And then his dad on his deathbed admits that about the aliens, it's all real. So do they do it in lineage, your family lineage? Absolutely they do. And I have to say with Paul's, it wouldn't surprise me if it goes all the way back to William Sinclair, the first era Keith's Nest. That would not surprise me at all. But it does happen, because what it does is if you have 2 or 3 people at different generations saying the same thing, it lends it real credibility. You know, it makes it so believable because these are just people going about their business. You know, they're not necessarily looking for this stuff. They just, unfortunately, through an accident at birth, are exposed to it.
Okay, thank you. Go on, Les. More questions?
Yeah, we've got lots of questions, and thanks for the questions, people, for sending them over to Sky. Very knowledgeable audience we're going tonight, Paul, as usual.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, Annie French Boynton, what do the panel think the end game will be for us humans on Earth? You can either leave that question for the end of the show, if you like, and move on to something else.
It's your call. I mean, it's for the panel. I mean, I didn't mind sitting out.
Well, there's only one person to answer it. That's you, unless Rev's got an answer for this.
Yeah,
I
we'll go
I know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you could probably guess what I'm going to say. You know, that what this is about is they're going to show themselves. At some point, everything in the world's going to be switched off. They're going to use a massive electromagnetic pulse to down everything. And then they're going to reveal themselves. And if we aren't organised, if we aren't ready at that point, then we've no chance.
Do you think... I don't know, it might sound bleeding over to somebody here, but do you think that it's reached this point then in mankind's evolution before the showing themselves, the AI? Do you think that's playing a part in it? A real small part, the congressional hearings where we're getting people talking about the UFOs. You think all of this is staged? And
this has never happened before in human history, Paul. And they have to wait a certain time to get the massive population that they need. So this is the only time they will get to the point where they'll come when the resources are about ready to run out. That's when they're going to show themselves. They're going to let us literally fight and destroy ourselves with the weapons. And once we're expended, once we're done, then they will come.
But why, Rik? Why, when they could just take it anyway? Why would they have to? Why let us destroy ourselves or potentially get to that point if they're so superior that they could just take us whenever they wanted?
But they just can't take us whenever they want to, Paul. There has to be certain conditions met, okay? See, I get it seems logical, well, why didn't they just come? But if you've got 8 billion people saying, no, I'm not going to board the UFO, you know, I'm going to make my stand here, that causes them problems. You know, what you see is, what they want is for everybody to capitulate and just like sheep to the slaughter, walk on board the UFOs. That's what they want.
And this would be the rapture.
This is what the Christians call the rapture. The Muslims have another name for it. All different religions have something where their gods are returning to earth. And that's essentially what's happening. They claim to be gods. And their ancestors never stood a chance. They didn't stand a chance. I mean, they weren't brutal to them to begin with. I mean, when they're offering them, say, look, we'll show you how to grow your food. If you listen to us, all we want is every now and again we'll take 1 or 2 your people way down the line. They never stood a chance, Paul.
Right. Any views, Rev?
Yeah, so my view on the end is slightly different. I don't believe that there's any way that anything can come or leave. I think what we refer to as aliens are trapped here. I'll talk about it later.
Right.
But it's in ancient texts that's what happened, and the free will that we're allowed means that we still learn stuff and we're able to work stuff out. When we die, and we you know, people say about going to the light, that's all part of the trick. You go to the light, you get your mind wiped and you're sent back down and you start it all again. If you don't go to the light and you travel off, you get to see and learn all the knowledge that you had before you came back. So the point
is there a God in this scenario for you, Rev? Is there a God in this?
The God's just energy. You know, it's just what runs throughout the universe. It's not good, it's not bad, it's whatever you take from it.
Okay.
So the whole problem with the Earth is it's out of balance. There's too much negativity and there's not enough balance, and it needs to be readdressed. What we refer to as aliens, they're causing that. And they want everybody to be in a perpetual state of worship towards a god. It doesn't matter what god it is, so long as you understand the route that they want you to take, i.e. go into the light, so you keep coming back.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So there's a point in time which we're pretty much at, where the free reign that these aliens have from the gods that brought us here, and from what I understand, we are all, so if you're a human, you are a god. This is the deceit that's been played on you because you've let them take your power away. When you realize how powerful you are, yeah, they can't do shit.
Yeah.
So it's all about awakening yourself.
Yeah.
And if we're all able to do that, if we're all able to create these ripples and just help tip each person in that direction so they start looking into themselves instead of upwards, then hopefully the balance will be readdressed and everything should start to come back into a natural order. And that seems to me the way that it's played.
Right.
As to these entities that are here, the aliens, that will all reveal itself and we'll all have to deal with that as and when it happens. So it'll be different for all of us. But ultimately, we've all got the same goal, which is, you know, when people are, I don't know, say like you're trapped under a boat and you're drowning and you're out in the middle of the bloody sea and there's nobody around you, right? That's the time when people start praying.
Right? God,
yeah. And they've never done it before, you know, something that they were told when they were at school, sort of thing. What they should be doing is they should be looking into themselves thinking, how the hell can I sort this out myself? Because now else is going there. And when that happens, that's when you have a turnaround. That's when grandmas lift cars off children, stuff like, you know, amazing. Like you were talking about, that belief. There is no obstacle because it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's the way we need to go. And if we don't go that way, then the rapture, the harvest, whatever you want to call it, is what we're all going to start to have to deal with. So we've got a chance to turn stuff, but we've got to talk and we've got to help people and we've got to expand stuff. And
yeah, we've got to come together. Basically, we have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's how I perceive the end. But it's not the end for us; it's the end for them.
Right. Okay.
And that's what we've got to understand.
Yeah, I could understand how you would get that right. There is something else here. I've tried to stay away from this, but I suspect Paul was steering me towards it. I have to go to it. There is a creator, okay? And I know this is going to be popular, but when the Pesha came, they usurped the creator. They say to their ancestors that they were the creators and not the true creator. And the true creator is the one that was in the Garden of Eden with Eve when the aliens come down. And that's the serpent. And that's it. She's the creator. Now, the reason I tried to avoid it was because it's a big, long thing, but I feel now I can't. I feel because what is coming to us this, Rev, we need her help. Would you agree if there was ever a time that we needed a creator to help us, would it not be the now? You know, we're on the verge.
Absolutely.
If I'm right, if we're on the verge of getting invaded by someone that's so technically superior that's just going to take us, eat us, do whatever, and take the planet. If there was ever a time for a creator to come, now would be it. Now you could see why our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. It's no the Pesha that hear that. It is the serpent that hears that. And if more than half people are shouting on the Pesha, then she will stand back. You see, humans are in a unique position. I believe before the human species come along, the serpent protects the planet. When humans come along, it's handed over to them. But what the Pesha are doing goes against universal rules. You're not allowed to take another planet, because if that happened, all that would means is they're going to hop from planet to planet, continually evolving their technology, continuously making themselves efficient. So they have to be stopped. So that one chance that we have is we have to call her in. And that's just such a, I mean, wow. I mean, you know, you can see now, but what you can see is how religion has been divided. That's why they're not the same religion. It's divided in order to put in different ideas to have us kind of picks and mix what we see appeals to us. But there is a true creator. It was her. Look at it this way: in the Garden of Eden, right? God says to Eve, if you eat the forbidden fruit, you will die the day you eat it. The serpent says, you will not die. You will be like the gods. They ate the fruit, and what happened? They lived. So right at the beginning, at the very first thing, God is proven to be a liar. They did not die the day they ate it. But obviously what they derive is they have us associate the serpent with everything negative. But when you think of waves, you think of strands of DNA, you know, you find these string theory, because I believe the strings are what builds the universe. I believe there's tiny one-dimensional versions of her, and it is a she. It is a she. Look, for 2.5 billion years, life existed as single-celled little entities, and they were female, tiny little serpents. When they start to come together, they start to build up. So it's like the truth has been split in half. Yeah, there is a creator. She didn't create other things. You see that very first cell. She brought all the ingredients together. Say live, and that's it.
Yeah.
Then she doesn't interfere again. She can't interfere because everybody's her children. So how does she choose? However, there is one thing that she will come back for the brink for. Doesn't matter if you're going to get hit by an asteroid, Ray, because that's what happened to the dinosaurs, for them to get their chance. It happened to the reptiles before and for the mammals to get a chance. So that's all part of nature. What is not part of nature is an alien species of human coming and deceiving us. Okay? They've done it in a very clever way because they were here at the dawn of humanity. So when we evolved into the species that we were, they were already waiting on this happening because they had to start the plan. And the plan to begin with, there's nothing crazy. You know, you're allowed to look, and then they slowly start to deceive, start to pull away until we're at the position now where the serpent is totally negated, seen as the bad one. Look, when you read the Bible, there's 2,476,477 deaths that God claims. The one that they call Satan, the serpent, 10 deaths. And even then, that's saying. So if you want to see who to fear, if you want to see who's ordering genocide, it's not the serpent. The serpent told the truth. And that's just that. Now I could understand why people have a problem with that. I get it.
No.
I really do. But it's there, Paul. Again.
It's going to take a shift in human thinking, though, to generate that change, and to avoid what you're saying is going to happen. And like you've just said, we're all divided. There's so many religions and non-religions and different tracks of thinking that I don't think we can become as one.
Well, that's what they're banking on. I have faith. I have absolute faith it could be done. She says it could be done. It could be done.
You don't need to be banded together as one. You need to be an individual that's able to think as one.
Exactly.
Right.
Each part is like a living thing. You bring to that, and you bring your own thing to it. You're right. You've got to achieve your own thing, Rev, in order to become part of the whole. That's what's going on there.
But you know, there lies the difficulty, though, Rev. You know, we're not. I don't think, and it sounds defeatist, this, doesn't it? But I don't think that we're going to change people whose mindsets are so ingrained. What's it going to take? It would take some kind of. It would take a miracle. It would take something that they could see and perceive to change that mindset.
What if
some people will never believe, and even if she shows herself, then you're told not to believe, right? Yeah. So the way to me that you deal with that is you have to look into yourself. So think about your children. You want them to understand themselves first so they can apply that and put that forth within the world, yeah?
Yeah.
So that understanding, that knowing yourself, that's the key to opening up. So that's I guess, in human terms, that's the way that we have to approach it, because it's far too much for a lot of people to go from 0 to 100 miles. You know what I mean?
That's absolutely right. Of course, you're right, mate. Absolutely. But why do you think I'm reaching out to people like yourselves? Why do you think that I'm saying that person's got it? That person's got it. This one's on the right track. Because what I want to take is the experiences that you've had, Paul, and be able to explain to you what's been going on to you at the point of say, wow, that can't be anything but right. You know, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I'm under no illusions what I'm up against. I mean, this is why it nearly broke me, because the enormity of the task. Because not only did I have to deal with what was coming, I have to try to think a way to how do we deal with that. So you could see why. I mean, I told Paul Rev, I took a styling blade to my hair, cut all my hair virtually off. I was just in such a mess. I just had to kind of show on the outside what was going on from the inside.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just why it's taken me on 25 years to get to this point. This is why 7 years ago when I went to see Paul, it was just about literally saying, listen, I'm going to come back for you in the future. This journey here is my proof to you that I think you're something fucking different, and I'll come back for you. So that was always there. And whoever Paul takes along, I'm interested as well. So I know the way he speaks about you, right away, you've got my interest because you had to get through his process. Okay, so that's how it was.
Honestly, I don't know how this is going to be perceived tonight. You know, but,
Yeah.
I want you back on here, Rik. Seriously, because
Well, that would be great. I would love that. I mean, obviously, this is a pinnacle.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's absolutely, and I think Rev thinks the same. And it's not just blowing smoke up your backside there, but
No, because I didn't want that. I want to be challenged on it.
Well, we're staying with this, but let's just jump to the EMFs just again, the electric, the magnetic fields.
Yeah.
Why aren't people we've got the two categories. We've got the ionizing and the non-ionizing. So the non-ionizing is safe. I think you'll know more about this than me. And the ionizing magnetism and energy is not safe. Why are people not getting damaged by this?
Well, EMF energy is natural in the environment, Paul. Okay.
Yeah, but you're saying they're producing this as well with the.
But what I'm about to say is, if you were constantly exposed to it, as some people are, because what happens sometimes, the shadow person will break down and just stay in a room. So when the people walk into this room, they feel the oppressive thing. If you're constantly exposed to that, it literally drives people to the edge. They will tell you they had to get out of that house was hurting them. And that's why it is. Because even if it doesn't morph into the shadow person, there are still secondary effects. It makes you feel anxiety, the sense of dread, the sense of being watched. You know, if that's in one of your rooms and you're in a small house, you're going to be contaminated by that.
But you're talking about massive inputs that can actually change the way everything feels in the environment. So why? I know you haven't got an answer to this, Rik, and they're not quick.
It's okay, mate,
but why aren't we getting cellular damage?
Well, who's to say we're no, Paul? You know, I didn't care about that. I came for a fact that the Pesha won't care if they're damaging us. That's a necessary evil as far as they're concerned. But when you see how EMF has been enhanced all around about us, there's got to be a perfect balance, and that balance has got to be it, mate. But then that just adds to the problems that humans are facing, Paul. And this is what the Pesha want. You know, the technology, like I say, I didn't believe there's ever been one single genuine UFO crash. I don't believe it. I just didn't. What they're doing is they're getting crashed on purpose in order to hand over technology and hand over bodies. So you've got the wee alien grey, and then the Russians maybe get one with Reptilian, so they get that. So what you find is everybody keeps getting these things just to deliver. So it jumps things. So we're no learning for the technology what the genuine damage is. It's like it's a Trojan horse. And the way that they're giving it us, I'll guarantee you there will be elements in it that can be taken down. Yeah, so they're going to use, I believe, a massive EMF pulse ball to shut everything down. Yeah. But they'll only do that when they're ready. They're not going to...
That kind of figures what you've just said. What we talked about the AI, and we're at this stage in our evolution where we've got AI. We're also at this stage in our evolution where everything relies on electricity. Everything relies on, the fighter aircraft. That they'd be absolutely they'd fall out at sky, wouldn't they?
That's right. That's right. And now you could see what if that happens, Paul? Cars will just come to a stop. You know, everything will just stop. For the first time in 10,000 years, the world will be quiet. You're right, planes will fall out of the sky. That is going to happen because that's to add to the horror. That's to add to the, oh, there's nothing we can do about it here. The only thing we can do is prepare and try to be ready for it. But we need help, and we need help for the boss.
Right. And I'm going to jump to Les, my boss, in a minute. And just because I'm conscious we've got Rik and Rev, we've got 10 minutes left. So if we can get a few questions in, that'd be good. Are you happy with that, Rev, Rik? Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, off we go then. We've got a question from Debbie Shaw. Is Rik aware of a book called Harvest by G.L. Davis? And if he has...
I didn't, Debbie. I couldn't say nothing about that. Sorry.
Hi, Deb.
Yeah. Let's have a look then. We've got...
Might be worth looking at, though, Rik.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, Jay Levelis is asking, how important do you think numbers have a meaning in all of this?
Well, look, there's basically 10 numbers, 0 to 9, okay? And there are certain numbers that repeat themselves. So you've got 7 colours of the rainbow, 7 musical notes, things like that. So there will be a patterns running through it, but I don't know if they're done intentionally or if just they find their way because that's what happens. You know, it's just there's only so much numbers we can use. So it's like I think the square of the Great Pyramid Giza is something like 666, and there's other number. You know, there's other things where that number comes through. So it doesn't surprise. But what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't look at numbers and then take my lead for that, because that's too close to the occult, that's too close to numerology. But I do believe there's a natural thing with numbers coming through our societies and our planet.
Well, you can break everything down into numbers, can't you, through binary? So
right. Yeah,
every atom, every cell has its own unique binary code. So everything can be, manufactured in that way, can't it?
Exactly right.
Okay, I've got a question from Ginge197. Is Rik aware of a book by a guy called Steve Aspin, Out of Time? It says no, it's in its 2nd edition. He discusses abductions and doesn't believe these entities have good intentions towards us.
Well, I haven't read the book, Ginge, but I agree with the sentiments here. They do not have good intentions to us. And on the subject of abductions, look, if they want sperm or eggs, they could easily do it without us being aware of anything. What they do is they take the person, wake them up, tell them they're not going to hurt them, sexually assault them, literally rape them, and they put them back, and the person suffers PTSD. Okay, just another method. Oh, they want eggs, so that's a breeding program. No, that's all deception. That's just all deceit. That.
D is asking, what do you think of Dr. Melba Ketchum's DNA study of Sasquatch?
I think they need somebody like her, because it's important there's sort of a base to touch down in the science world. I think the problem with them is I've seen them claiming that samples have been contaminated where I didn't think there was, because there was one sample, there was wolf DNA and ape DNA. Now, they thought that the sample was contaminated, but if the wolf is the final sort of position that's to look at, and if they're using muscle mass in the gorilla, which I believe they are, you're going to find these bizarre combinations. You will find sort of like a chimera effect, and that's what you should be finding. I can't remember what one it is, but there was one that I thought, no, they made a mistake here. But they need scientists like that. They need that credibility, but she needs to come far, far over to where we are,
Brilliant. I've got a question from Warren Hardcastle. What does Rik think of the Patterson film at Bluff Creek?
I think that was the real deal. I think when you look at the muscle mass, the way it was moving, the whole thing, and every now and again something like this will happen. Usually you can't get a clear shot of the cryptids. They're so in tune with their environment. But for me, it's the real deal, definitely.
And
that made it history when I was a kid.
Just before we move away from that, what were your views on that bit of footage, Rev?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that he was going up there to film just that. But looking at
Point taken.
Yeah, looking at the later evidence that other people have done, where they've kind of paced it out to find out what height Patty would be, sort of thing, and then the video analysis and stuff. Yeah, it looks real to me. And yeah, when you see people that are there today, you can still see roughly the photograph. So it's been looked at a lot, and everybody has an opinion, and nobody will be right with it.
Yeah,
It's right to be cynical, but yeah, it does look quite authentic, doesn't it?
Right then, I'll show this one. A pat on the back for you guys on the stream, doing the stream for us tonight. Best
you,
truth
Annie.
proof ever. Lots of food for thought, says Annie French boy.
And I knew it'd be interesting, and I know there's going to be people saying that a bit too over the top for me, but it's like everything, isn't it? Too much
It's
for some,
crazy.
not enough for others. And
yeah.
I think a lot of what you're saying, Rick, is what a lot of people are onto. You're just saying it in a different way.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think people have their own part of it, and they just, as yet, they didn't realise that it's all related. But it's like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, Paul. So, and this is just the first sort of sweep, for want of a better word. If I'm talking to somebody individually, I know it's going to take 2 or 3 sessions for them to really start to take on what I'm saying. So, this is great for me, for practice for me, to learn how to speak to an audience better.
Gavin's still crazy. He's asking, do you believe in simulation theory, Rick?
If you're talking, is the universe in a massive simulation? No, but I understand how it looks like that, because I believe essentially as the mind of a creator. If I didn't see how you could create a simulation when you travel light years to get to things. I don't see it. There's too much. We have too much of a handle on our existence now for it to be a simulation. But I do understand how it looks like that, and it's tempting to go that line.
Okay, I've got a question from Chris Evers, Outer Limits magazine. All religions is man-made concept. What real indisputable proof does he have of his claims?
Well, all religions are man-made for a start. Okay. You look at Christianity, being comes down from the sky, and this child is born, and all that. What I would say is there's a couple of excerpts in the Bible, and I didn't have it in front of me, but there's one where it says about the 7 sisters, the Pleiades, and Orion's belt. Now it turns out, what it says, canst thou loosen the bands of the Pleiades, can thou find the route of the stars. And what it is, if you look into the night sky, there's literally only 1 or 2 constellations that are gravitationally bound with each other, meaning they hold each other. So the Pleiades is one, if not the only one. The 3 stars in Orion's belt, they're flying away from each other, but they came from the same stellar nursery. Now that quote in the Bible is scientific knowledge. That couldn't be guessed at. The other one is, hast thou seen the springs of the deep? Now it's only about 10 years ago that we found out there's freshwater seeps coming into the ocean. There are several ones like this in the Book of Job that are scientific knowledge. You can't guess these things, okay? So that would be my proof that they can't be man-made. If it was man-made, it wouldn't have the weight that it has, because you have to keep naming things. So angels, you have to give this group stuff, this group stuff. It has to be an ongoing process.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rick. And I think at this point, I've got to call a closure to tonight's stream. With just a minute or so to go. So if you want to, I don't know, give a couple of...
it's just, I've answered to do out, have I? Rev's put his input in. Rick's done it. We've had the brilliant questions. Thank you, everybody.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
and,
I just want to say thanks, Paul, for giving me this opportunity. Because it's been a long time coming, mate, and you've been patient with me. You've let me get to this point that I needed to get, and you've helped me when I had to. And it's the same with yourself, Ray, and the same with yourself, Les. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak. Because I can understand why somebody would tear me a nutcase and not give me the opportunity. I mean, I do understand that. So I really appreciate this opportunity.
It's been an honour. It's been an honour and a privilege, Rik, to have you on.
Always. It's the honour's all mine, me. It really
No.
is.
Well, thank you. It's
On
been
that
good.
note, then, we'll say
Just want to tell everybody, Wolflands, Amazon Prime, give it a looking at. If you don't want to download it, read the reviews. It might make you change your mind. It's still doing good. And on that note, I've done. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Hit like and subscribe, please.
Oh, like and subscribe, please. Yeah, I haven't done.
Yeah. And I got to thank Sky for sending the questions over. I didn't get all the questions out tonight, as probably some of you who have asked questions have realised that. Really apologise for that, but it's been a fascinating show with Rik Allan and the Rev. On that note, we'll say good night.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.